Hey guys, in this video we're going to go ahead and continue to work with complex numbers, and we're going to be raising using the powers of a complex number and using de Moivre's theorem. Okay, so we know the complex number in trig form is this guy right here. Okay, it's a z equals r cosine theta plus I sine theta. So what we're going to be doing is basically raising this complex number by a certain power. Excuse me. And essentially, I'm not going to do the proof, but all you got to do is when you raise it to a power, all you got to do is raise the modulus to that power and multiply the angle by that power that you're raising it to. The only thing you have to do is figure out, you got to rewrite this guy into complex form, into trig form. Okay, so remember, to write this guy in trig form, it's a squared plus b squared to find your modulus. Okay, and then you have to do the tangent inverse of b over a to find that angle theta. Now remember, we have two angles, so you have to find the location of this guy in order to determine which angle you're going to be using. Okay, so let me just go ahead and draw this guy out. So if I have 1 minus square root of 3i, so 1 is over here, negative square root of 3i, it'll be down here. So this guy is going to be in the fourth quadrant. Okay, so I got to keep that in mind. All right, but first let's go ahead and do my r value. So r is equal to the square root. What's a? It's 1 squared plus negative 3 squared. Okay, and 1 squared is 1, and then negative 3 squared, that's going to give you positive 3, and that's going to give you square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2. Great. All right, so now I got to figure out my angle theta. Okay, so now I got to take the tangent inverse of b over a. So b is my negative radical 3 over value of, a is 1. Okay, and that's going to give me the angle. Okay, that's going to give me theta, and my pen's running out, guys, sorry about that. All right, theta. So I have to figure out where is what angle do we have negative square root of 3. Okay, so think about it. Tangent is different because it's sine over cosine, so we want square root of 3, this guy, over 1. So square root of 3 over 1. What angle am I folding? I'm folding 60 degrees. Well, 60 degrees is the same thing as pi over 3. Now the only thing is, remember, there's two possibilities, or actually there's four possibilities, but in this one there's only two because there's a negative, right? So look at the angle. This guy's over here in the fourth quadrant, so pi over 3, okay, is over here. That means over here we have 2 pi over 3. That means over here we have 5 pi over 3. So the angle that I'm actually going to be using is going to be 5 pi over 3. Okay, because actually there's two places where it could be negative, this guy, the second or the fourth, but because when I drew it, it was in the fourth quadrant, I'm going to use 5 pi over 3. So now that I have that, my complex number, I can write it in trig form, is going to be 2 times cosine of 5 pi over 3 plus I sine of 5 pi over 3. Okay, now that I have that, now I can go ahead and raise them. And what's the power that they want me to use? It's 4. Okay, so z to the fourth power is going to give this 2 to the fourth power. Okay, now I'm going to cosine, and I'm going to multiply this guy by 4, so that's going to give me 4 times 5 is 20 pi over 3 plus I sine of the same thing, 20 pi over 3. Okay, so what you're going to have to do is just do the math. Okay, now 2 to the fourth is pretty easy, that's 16. So now I have to do cosine of 20 pi over 3. Now remember, 20 pi over 3, it's too big, so let's go ahead and bring it back. So what I'm going to do is 20 pi over 3, bring it back. How many times is 3 going to 20 with that? 6 times without going over, so minus 6 pi. Okay, that means it's going to be 20 pi over 3 minus 18 pi over 3. And that's going to give me 2 pi over 3. Okay, so I got to figure out 2 pi over 3. So I got to figure out cosine of 2 pi over 3 plus I sine of 2 pi over 3 over here as well. Okay, so cosine of 2 pi over 3. What is that? Well, pi over 3 is my reference angle right here. What's the cosine? Is the top, it's 1/2. Okay. Now, is that 1/2 positive or is it negative? Okay, remember, where 2 pi over 3 is located in the second quadrant. All sin tacos. So over here, sine is positive. Okay. But that's not sine, that's cosine. So this guy's going to be negative. Plus. Now, sine of 2 pi over 3. What's sine of 2 pi over 3? 2 pi over 3. Well, pi over 3 is my reference angle. What's the sine? This guy. Square root of 3 over 2. So you're going to have square root of 3 over 2. Okay, now is it positive or negative? Well, 2 pi over 3 is over here. In the second quadrant, sine is positive. So that guy's going to be positive. So the last thing I have to do is just go ahead and distribute. So this is going to give me negative 8 plus 16 divided by 2 is 8. 8 radical 3. And that's it. We found the fourth power of this complex number. Okay, let's go ahead and see if we can do a few more. What about this guy? Now this one's kind of tricky because you have that 3 out there. Okay, you just kind of ignore for now and just do it with this guy, and then we're going to go ahead and multiply it on the outside. So let's go ahead and start out with our R value is the square root a squared plus b squared. So square root of 3 squared plus 1 squared. Well, when you do that, you're going to get 3 plus 1, which is 4, and the square root of 4 is 2. Great. Now, next thing I got to do is go ahead and do the tangent inverse of b over a. So that's my b, that's my a. So that's 1 over radical 3. Okay, and that's going to give me my theta. Now, for here, this guy, remember, I want to find the angle, so I'm not going to simplify it. Now, remember, tangent is sine over cosine. So I want sine over cosine, so I want 1 finger over 3. So I'm going to bend this guy. And if you can see that, this is 1 over 3. Okay, 1 over 3. And then, what angle am I bending? I'm bending that 30 degrees. So 30 degrees is the same thing as pi over 6. Now, where is this angle located? Okay, so if I draw it, okay, square root of 3 is going to go to the right, and then it's going to go up. So, somewhere in the first quadrant, which is good, so I'm just going to leave it as pi over 6. So when I write this guy, okay, I'm going to have 2 times cosine of pi over 6 plus I sine of pi over 6. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and raise it. Okay. Raise it to the whatever power they want. What is it, the 4th power? Okay. Now, what about this 3 on the outside? Well, all this 3 is doing is multiplying all of this in here. So I'm just going to put them out here. Okay. So this guy, I'm going to go ahead and do the math for it. So this guy is going to be 3 is on the outside. So it's going to be 2 to the 4th power. I'm sorry. And then cosine of pi over 6, right? But we're going to take this 4. Okay. So it's going to give me 4 pi over 6. We're going to multiply that in. And then I times sine of, again, 4 pi over 6. And that's it. And then we're going to go ahead and clean it up real quick. And then 2 to the 4th power is 16. 16 times 3 is 48. That's pretty nice. All right, let's see here. I'll clean this up before I do it. So 4 pi over 6 is 2 pi over 3. Plus I sine of 2 pi over 3 over here again. All right. So now I got to find cosine of 2 pi over 3. Pi over 3 is my reference angle. That's 60 degrees. Is this guy right here. What's my cosine? Cosine is the top, so it's 1/2. So this guy is 1/2. Okay. And I'm going to try to fit it in here. Now this is 1/2. Now is it positive or negative? Now remember, where's cosine of 2 pi over 3? Well, 2 pi over 3 is over here. That means sine is positive. Only sine is positive. That means this guy's going to be negative. All right, what about sine of 2 pi over 3? Well, sine of 2 pi over 3 is over here, and that is positive. And okay, so 2 pi over 3, 2 pi over 3 is this guy, 60 degrees. What is the sine? It's the bottom 3, square root of 3 over 2. Okay. Now for that one is positive. All right, and then we're just going to go ahead and distribute this guy out. 48 divided by 2 is 24, so this would be negative 24 plus 48 divided by another 2, same thing, 24 radical 3. And there it is, guys. All right, let's see if we can do another one here. This one's a little bit easier. This is how it was written, cosine of 150 degrees. So this is my trig form. We're going to raise it to the 4th power. The only thing is I don't like this 150 degrees. I like to change it into radians just because I like to use my mnemonic for the hand. So cosine of 150 degrees, that is the same thing as, what is that? 150 degrees. Well, 7 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6. Nope, 5 pi over 6. There we go. Plus I sine of 5 pi over 6. All right. And the way I do it sometimes, you know, well, I know pi over 6 is 30 degrees. 30 times 5, that's 150. So now I have to raise this guy to the 4th power. Okay. So I have to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Z to the 4th. Well, that's going to give me 4 to the 4th. And then 4 times 5 is 20. So it's me cosine of 20 pi over 6 plus I sine of 20 pi over 6. And okay. Now from here I probably can reduce it, divide by 2, so that's 10 pi over 3. Okay, cosine of 10 pi over 3, just to make it easier for yourselves. And then you're going to have to go ahead and use 10 pi over 3 to reduce it. And 4 to the 4th power, well, 4 to the 3rd is 64. 4 cubed is 64 times another 4 is 240 and 16, 256. All right. So now we got to figure this guy out. Well, let me see. Where's 10 pi over 3? I like to go ahead and just kind of bring it back. How many times does 3 go into 10? Well, it goes in 3 times. So 10 pi over 3 minus 9 pi over 3. Well, that's the same thing as 1 pi over 3. So 10 pi over 3 is in the exact same location as pi over 3, which is nice. So let me go ahead and write it over again right here, just so you guys can have that. And then cosine of pi over 3 plus I sine of pi over 3. Okay, so now what's pi over 3? Pi over 3 is 60 degrees. It's right here. What's cosine is 1/2. And since it's in the first quadrant, it's nice. Plus, what about sine of pi over 3? Well, that one is the opposite, right? Down here, well, 3 fingers, square root of 3 over 2. All I have to do now is multiply by that 256. So half of 256 is 128. And plus I of 128 radical 3. And there it is, guys. Let's do one more. Same thing with this one. Don't worry about that 2. Go ahead and just use this guy. Okay. So let's go ahead and find our R first. I got to rewrite this into my trig form. So R is square root of 2 squared plus radical 2 squared. Okay. Well, that's going to give me 4. That's going to give me 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. Okay. All right. And that's it. So now I got to figure out my angle, which is tangent inverse of B over A. So this guy over this guy, square root of 2 over 2. So they made it easy on us. All right. So where's tangent square root of 2 over 2? Tangent inverse. Wow, actually that's going to be, that's actually going to be a decimal. That's actually going to be a decimal. And we won't be able to figure that one out. So we're actually going to have to use our calculator for that. And it's okay, sometimes that happens. And so we want to go ahead and do that. And let me just figure it out real quick. And I was hoping they would give it to us, but it didn't come out this time. So let's go ahead and do tangent inverse. radical 2 over 2. Theta is equal to 0.785. All right. So that's a bit of a pain in the butt, but it's okay. All right. So now what do? Well, just continue the same process. Now, where is this guy located though? 2 plus radical 2. So if I had to graph that, I would go 2 to the right and then I go up. So it's in the first quadrant. So this guy is perfectly fine. All right, so now I have to go ahead and write this out. Let's see. So my complex number is square root of 6 times cosine of this guy, this decimal 0.785 plus I sine of 0.785. So now I have to raise that guy to what power? Oh, they want the 5th power. Now remember, I still have that 2 on the outside. So we're going to do 2, just leave them on the outside, square root of 6, and then cosine of 0.785 plus I sine 0.785, and that's going to be to the 5th power. All right. So we're going to do square root of 6 to the 5th power. And square root of 6 to the 5th power. And then this is going to be cosine of 5 times that. Cosine of 5 times 0.785 plus I sine of 5 times 0.785. And you just get a lot of decimals, and that'll be okay. Now, it's going to get a little tedious, but it's okay. Let's see. Square root of 6, I can just write it as 6 to the 1/2 power. And then times the 5 right here. That's going to give you 6 to the 5/2 power. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and do this guy. Cosine of 5 times 0.75. So it's 3.926. $3.926. And that's going to give me negative 0.707. Now I have to do this guy. I have to do the sine as well of 3.96 gives me approximately negative 0.706. Okay. And now for this guy right here, there's a couple of ways I can do it. How many times does 2 go into 5? Well, let's see, 2 times. And you have 1 left over. So that means we can do it like this and do that. And then you have the 2 on the outside here. Does that make sense? So 2 goes into 5 2 times. So 2 wholes of those 6's come out, and the 1/2. And you think about it, 2 plus 1/2, that's 2.5, which is 5/2. And then 6 squared is 36. 36 times 2 is 72. So this guy is going to end up being 72 radical 6 times negative 0.707 minus, and don't forget your I over here, and then minus 0.706 I. Okay, and then you would go ahead and distribute that, but I'm going to go ahead and just leave it like that. Okay, guys, and that would be it. So hopefully that makes sense, not too complex, just multiplying, raising to powers. And let me know if you have any questions, guys. Talk to you guys next time.